So back in 2019, the entire administrative map for Ladakh was completely redrawn. But what does that actually mean for the people living there? Let's break down the really unique way the strategic region is governed today. They call it the land of high passes. It's one of those names that just perfectly captures the place. And while the landscapes are absolutely breathtaking, the system of governance there is just as complex. And that's exactly what we're going to unravel.
All right, to really get a handle on how Ladakh's administration works now, we've got to rewind a bit, back to a huge historic change that happened just a few years ago.
Okay, there are two dates here that are absolutely critical. First, in August 2019, the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Bill was passed. Then, on October 31st of that same year, the Union Territory of Ladakh was officially born. This single act, it fundamentally changed everything for the region.
So, what did Ladakh become? A union territory without a legislature. And this is a really crucial point. What it means is, unlike a state, Ladakh is governed directly by the central government. And the central government does this through an appointed representative right there on the ground. And that brings us to the key figure, the person who represents the central government's authority in Ladakh. So who exactly holds this really powerful position? Well, the top post is the lieutenant governor, or LG for short. Since it was formed, Ladakh's had a few LGs, starting with R.K. Mathur, then B.D. Mishra, and now Kavinder Gupta. And hey, our source material even gives us this handy little trick to remember them, Mami Kavi Hey. A great little mnemonic, right? Makes it way easier to remember.
Now, officially, an LG's term is 5 years. But this quote really gets to the heart of the role. They serve at the pleasure of the president. What that really means is their term is ultimately up to the central government. It just highlights that direct chain of command we were talking about.
But here's the thing. Direct central rule is only half the story. To really understand how Ladakh is governed day to day, we've got to look at these powerful local bodies that give a real voice to the people in the hills.
And this is it, the LAHDC, or the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. These bodies were specifically designed to give democratic control right at the local level. And it's pretty interesting. They were actually modeled on the Darjeeling Hill Development Council, which kind of set the pattern for this kind of regional autonomy.
So what do these councils look like? Well, each one has 30 members in total. The vast majority, 26 of them, are directly elected by the people. The other 4 are nominated by the lieutenant governor, and that's to make sure that minorities and women have representation.
And believe me, these councils have real authority. Just check out the equivalent ranks here. The head of the council, the chief executive counselor, is pretty much on par with a cabinet minister. And the executive counselors are like deputy ministers. This isn't just symbolic stuff, it signifies real, tangible administrative power at the local level. The Union Territory of Ladakh is made up of 2 very distinct districts. Each one has its own history, its own identity, and, you guessed it, its own hill council. Now, while both districts have councils today, they didn't get them at the same time. The LAHDC in Leh was set up way back in 1995, but the council in Kargil, that came about 8 years later, in 2003. Okay, time for a little question to get you thinking. We all know Ladakh's location is geopolitically critical, right? It borders 3 different countries. But which of its 2 districts actually sits on those international frontiers? Any guesses? And the answer is the Leh district. This is a pretty remarkable geopolitical fact. Leh shares borders with Pakistan and China, and it even touches Afghanistan through a tiny strip of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The Kargil district, which many people might assume has international borders, actually doesn't. This makes Leh's role just so strategically vital. So to reflect the equal importance of both districts, Ladakh has this really unique setup. 2 joint capitals, Leh and Kargil. This whole dual capital system was a very deliberate choice, to make sure there's a balanced administrative structure for the entire Union territory. So let's pull all these threads together. Let's get one final, clear picture of how Ladakh is governed today. So, if there's one thing to take away, it's this. Ladakh's governance is a fascinating blend. You've got direct oversight from the central government through the lieutenant governor, but at the same time, you have these powerful, democratically elected hill councils managing local affairs. It's this dual system of power, a constant balancing act between central authority and the local democratic will. And that brings us to our final thought for today. This complex, layered system was designed for a totally new chapter in Ladakh's history. But the big question that remains is this unique model a permanent blueprint for the future, or is it simply another step in this region's long and constantly evolving story of governance? Something to think about.